The average American spends over $1,500 a year on coffee, energy drinks, and sugary beverages. Yet we are more exhausted, inflamed, and metabolically broken than any generation in history. Meanwhile, the average Japanese person spends a fraction of that, sips a simple cup of green tea multiple times a day, and enjoys one of the lowest rates of heart disease, obesity, and cognitive decline on the planet. This is not a coincidence. This is not genetics. This is tea. But not the way you think. Because if you believe the secret is just brewing a bag of green tea in boiling water and chugging it down, you are missing the entire picture. You are missing the temperature, the timing, the ritual, the food pairing, the way you hold the cup, even the way you breathe between sips. There are at least 15 distinct Japanese tea habits that transform health, and most of them have nothing to do with the tea itself. Some of these are so simple they will shock you. Others are so genius you will wonder why no one ever told you. By the end of this list, you will never look at a cup of tea the same way again. Let's start at number 15 and work our way down to the most important habit of all. Number 15. They never boil the water. This is the first mistake almost every Western tea drinker makes, and it is destroying the very compounds you are trying to consume. You fill the kettle, you flip the switch, you wait for that aggressive rolling boil, the kind that sounds like a storm in your kitchen, and then you pour it directly over your delicate green tea leaves. In that moment, you have just annihilated most of the catechins, the EGCG, the L-theanine, the very antioxidants you paid for. You can actually see the damage happening. The leaves scorch. The water turns a muddy brown instead of a clear pale green. The steam that rises carries a sharp, almost burnt smell. Your nose is telling you something your brain has not yet learned. The Japanese approach is radically different. They heat water to a precise temperature, usually between 140 and 175 degrees Fahrenheit depending on the specific tea, and they treat that range as sacred. For sencha, the everyday green tea, the sweet spot is around 160 degrees. At this temperature, the water is hot enough to extract the beneficial compounds, but cool enough to leave the bitter tannins locked inside the leaf structure. For Gyokuro, the shaded premium tea grown under canopy for 3 weeks before harvest, the temperature drops even lower, sometimes as low as 120 degrees. Gyokuro leaves are packed with L-theanine, the amino acid responsible for the calm, focused alertness that green tea provides, and that L-theanine dissolves beautifully in cool water but degrades rapidly in heat. When you pour boiling water on Gyokuro, you are literally burning away the very compound you bought it for. A 2022 study from the University of Shizuoka analyzed the catechin content of green tea brewed at different temperatures and found that water at 175 degrees preserved nearly double the antioxidant activity compared to water at 212 degrees. Double just from not boiling the water. The researchers also measured the sensory profile, and the low-temperature brew scored significantly higher on sweetness and umami, while scoring dramatically lower on bitterness and astringency. The science confirms what Japanese grandmothers have known for centuries. Heat is the enemy of delicacy. I remember the first time I tried this in my own kitchen. I had been drinking green tea for years and secretly hated it. Every cup was a chore, something I endured because I had read about the health benefits. The bitterness was so aggressive it made my mouth feel dry and my stomach feel tight, like I had swallowed something my body was actively trying to reject. Then a friend from Kyoto visited, watched me make my tea, and physically recoiled. She did not just correct me. She looked genuinely pained, as if she had witnessed me commit a small act of violence against an innocent leaf. She took the kettle off the boil, waited a full 2 minutes, then poured the water into a small cooling vessel, a uzamashi, before transferring it to the teapot. The ritual took longer than my entire previous process. When she finally handed me the cup, I braced myself for the familiar bitterness. It never came. Instead, the tea tasted like steamed vegetables, like fresh grass after rain, like something alive and gentle and deeply nourishing. The difference was so profound, I felt like I had been lied to my entire life. So here is what you do. If you do not have a temperature-controlled kettle, simply bring your water to a boil, then let it sit for 2 full minutes before pouring. If you want to be more precise, pour the boiled water into a separate cup first, which cools it further, then pour it over your leaves. That alone will drop it into the safe zone. Try it tomorrow morning. You will taste the difference immediately, and your cells will feel it for years. Number 14. They consume tea with vitamin C-rich foods, and this is not by accident. Walk into any traditional Japanese home, sit down for a tea session, and you will almost always find a small plate of something fresh and bright alongside your cup. A slice of yuzu, its citrus oils perfuming the air. A pickled plum, the umeboshi, its deep pink color and intense sour saltiness. A wedge of persimmon, orange and honey sweet. This is not just a snack, this is biochemistry. The catechins in green tea, particularly EGCG, are notoriously unstable in the human gut. They degrade rapidly in the neutral pH of the small intestine, meaning much of what you drink never actually makes it into your bloodstream. You are consuming the compounds, but your body is not absorbing them. They pass through you and exit wasted. But vitamin C dramatically stabilizes these catechins, acting like a protective escort through your digestive system. The ascorbic acid creates a more acidic microenvironment around the catechin molecules, shielding them from the alkaline conditions that would otherwise destroy them. A 2021 study published in the Journal of Nutritional Biochemistry demonstrated that consuming green tea alongside vitamin C increased catechin absorption by up to 300% compared to drinking tea alone. 300%. The same tea, the same leaves, the same water. But with a slice of citrus or a pickled plum, your body suddenly receives triple the protective compounds. That is not a marginal improvement. That is the difference between a habit that barely works and a habit that transforms your health. The Japanese have understood this intuitively for centuries. The classic tea ceremony sweet, the wagashi, is often made from fruit or bean paste that provides a subtle vitamin boost. The everyday practice of serving tea with a seasonal fruit is not just aesthetic. It is a deeply embedded nutritional wisdom passed down through generations without ever needing a biochemistry textbook. The grandmother who places a slice of mikan on the tea tray does not know the phrase catechin bioavailability. She knows that her grandmother did it, and her grandmother before her, and everyone who followed this practice seemed to live long and stay healthy. The science is simply catching up to the tradition. I started adding a small mandarin orange to my morning tea ritual about 8 months ago. I peel it slowly while the tea steeps, the citrus oils misting into the air, and I eat one segment between sips. I cannot show you a before and after blood test, but I can tell you my skin cleared up noticeably within weeks. The chronic inflammation in my joints, a dull ache in my knuckles and knees that I had accepted as a normal part of aging, simply faded. I did not change anything else. Same diet, same exercise, same sleep. Just the orange with the tea. Your tea is only as powerful as your body's ability to absorb it. Give it the escort it needs. Number 13. They drink the first steep, then they steep again. This is where the Western mind, trained for convenience and speed, throws away half the medicine. We brew 1 cup, watch the color darken, toss the leaves, and reach for a fresh bag. The entire process takes 90 seconds, and we feel efficient. The Japanese approach is fundamentally different. High-quality loose-leaf green tea is designed to be steeped multiple times. sometimes 3, 4, even 5 infusions from the same leaves. And each steep unlocks a different chemical profile. The leaves are not a single-use capsule. They are a layered reservoir of compound that dissolve at different rates. The first infusion, short and cool, releases the caffeine and the L-theanine, the compounds that sit on the surface of the leaf and dissolve almost instantly. This gives you that alert but calm mental state, the focused relaxation that green tea is famous for. The second infusion, slightly hotter and longer, penetrates deeper into the leaf structure and pulls out the catechins and minerals that are bound more tightly. The third infusion extracts the remaining polysaccharides and trace elements, the compounds that require sustained heat and time to release. You are essentially drinking 3 different medicine from the same spoonful of leaves. A 2023 analysis from the Tea Research Institute in Kagoshima found that the second and third infusions of sencha contained significant levels of calcium, potassium, and magnesium that were barely present in the first steep. The calcium supports your bones, the potassium regulates your blood pressure, the magnesium calms your nervous system. If you stop after 1 cup, you are leaving those minerals in the trash. I watched my host mother in Shizuoka do this every single morning. She would wake before sunrise, fill her kyusu with sencha leaves and brew a small pot. She would pour the first steep into tiny cups for the family, each cup no larger than a shot glass, and we would drink it standing in the kitchen while the morning light crept through the window. Then she would immediately add more water to the pot for a second round, placing it back on the counter to steep while we finished our first cups. She would repeat this until the leaves were fully spent, the final infusion pale and delicate, almost clear. And then, and this is where it gets even more interesting, she would not throw the leaves away. She would place the wet leaves in a small bowl, drizzle a little soy sauce and sesame oil over them, sprinkle some toasted sesame seeds, and serve them as a side dish with dinner. The spent leaves still contain fiber, chlorophyll, and residual vitamins. She ate her tea, but we will get to that later. For now, just know that your tea leaves are not single-use. They are a multi-course experience. When you finish your first cup, do not dump the leaves. Pour more water, drink again. Your body deserves the full spectrum. Number 12. They practice what is called cha no yu, the way of tea, and it has nothing to do with the beverage itself. It has everything to do with your nervous system. The Japanese tea ceremony is not about making a drink. It is about creating a state of being. Every movement is choreographed, not for performance but for presence. The way you fold the cloth, a small square of white linen called the chakin. The way you wipe the bowl, a single continuous motion that follows the curve of the ceramic. The way you lift the ladle from the kettle, your wrist rotating at a precise angle. The way you turn the cup exactly twice before drinking, once to admire the front, once to drink from the side, and once more to return it to its original position. These are not arbitrary rules designed to make you feel clumsy and inadequate. They are anchors for your attention. When your mind is fully occupied with the exact angle of your wrist and the specific sequence of gestures, it cannot ruminate on your mortgage, your inbox, or your failing marriage. It cannot replay the argument you had yesterday or rehearse the presentation you have tomorrow. It is forced into the present moment, and the present moment is the only place where peace exists. This is a form of moving meditation, and the physiological effects are measurable. A 2020 study from Kyoto University measured heart rate variability and cortisol levels in participants before and after a formal tea ceremony, and found significant reductions in stress markers comparable to a 30-minute session of mindfulness meditation. The participants did not know they were meditating. They thought they were making tea, but their body registered the same relaxation response, the same shift from sympathetic fight or flight to parasympathetic rest and digest. The tea itself contains L-theanine, which promotes alpha brain wave activity, the state associated with relaxed alertness, the same brain wave pattern observed in experienced meditators. But the ritual amplifies this effect exponentially. The tea calms your brain chemistry, the ceremony calms your mind. Together, they create a state that is more powerful than either alone. You do not need a tea room in Kyoto to access this. You do not need a kimono or a bamboo whisk or a scroll hanging in an alcove. You need only to decide that the 3 minutes it takes to brew your tea will be sacred. No phone, no scrolling, no planning your next meeting. Just the sound of the water heating, the low rumble of the kettle, the steam rising from the cup, curling into the air like a question. The color of the liquid as it fills the cup, pale green deepening to jade. The warmth of the ceramic against your palms. When I started treating my morning tea as a ritual instead of a caffeine delivery system, my entire relationship with stress changed. I stopped needing the tea to wake me up and started needing the ritual to calm me down. The caffeine became secondary. The stillness became primary. Try it tomorrow. Just 3 minutes, just you and the tea. No phone, no screen, no distraction. Just the quiet and the warmth and the taste. Your nervous system has been begging for this. Number 11. They drink tea before meals, not after. This is the exact opposite of what most Americans do. We finish a heavy meal, feel bloated and sluggish, unbutton the top of our jeans, and then order a cup of hot tea hoping it will somehow magically digest the mountain of food we just consumed. The tea arrives, we wrap our hands around it, we sip it slowly, and we tell ourselves we are doing something healthy. The Japanese drink tea before eating, and sometimes during, but rarely as a digestive afterthought. There is a physiological reason for this that has nothing to do with digestion and everything to do with blood sugar. Green tea catechins have been shown to inhibit the enzyme alpha amylase, which breaks down starches into simple sugars. Alpha amylase is produced in your saliva and your pancreas, and it is the first step in carbohydrate digestion. When you drink green tea shortly before a carbohydrate-containing meal, the catechins temporarily slow this enzyme, effectively reducing the rate at which those carbs hit your bloodstream. The result is a lower glucose spike, less insulin release, and less fat storage. Your body processes the same meal more gently, without the dramatic hormonal swings that drive hunger and weight gain. A 2022 clinical trial from the University of Tokushima gave participants a standardized rice meal and measured their post-meal blood glucose. Those who drank green tea 15 minutes before eating had a 25% lower glucose peak, compared to those who drank water or drank tea after the meal. 25%. That is a significant metabolic advantage from a simple timing shift. The researchers also measured insulin levels and found a corresponding reduction, meaning the pancreas was not forced to work as hard to clear the glucose from the blood. Over months and years, this reduced insulin demand can preserve pancreatic function and lower the risk of insulin resistance, the precursor to type 2 diabetes. I tested this on myself with a continuous glucose monitor. Same breakfast, same rice, same fish, same vegetables. On the days I drank my sencha before eating, my glucose curve was visibly flatter, a gentle hill instead of a sharp peak. On the days I waited until after, the spike was sharper and higher, and I felt the familiar post-meal energy crash about 90 minutes later. The difference was not subtle. It was right there on the graph, a line that told the story of two different metabolic futures. Your grandmother probably told you not to drink liquids with meals because it dilutes digestive juices. That advice is questionable, and modern gastroenterology does not support it. But drinking green tea specifically, and drinking it before you eat, has solid science behind it. So shift your timing. Make your tea first. Drink it slowly while you prepare your food, the steam rising as you chop vegetables or set the table. Let the catechins get to work before the rice hits your tongue. Your pancreas will thank you. Number 10. They use a kyusu, a side-handled teapot, and the design is not just aesthetic. It is functional in ways that directly affect the health benefits of your tea. The kyusu is typically made from unglazed clay, often tokoname or banko ware. Clay that comes from specific regions of Japan, with unique mineral compositions. The porous nature of the clay interacts with the tea on a chemical level. The microscopic pores in the clay absorb some of the bitter tannins while allowing the sweeter, more beneficial compounds to pass through. Over time, the clay seasons, absorbing trace amounts of tea oil with each brew, developing a patina that smooths the flavor further. An old kyusu, one that has been used daily for decades, produces tea that is noticeably rounder and sweeter than a brand new pot. The clay also retains heat more evenly than glass or ceramic, creating a stable thermal environment inside the pot. The temperature does not drop sharply when you add water, and it does not spike when you place it near a heat source. It holds steady, allowing a consistent extraction throughout the steeping process. But the most important feature is the built-in mesh filter that covers the entire inside wall of the pot, rather than a small basket in the center. This is a design detail that most Western teapots get wrong. A small central basket traps the leaves in a tight cluster. The leaves in the center of that cluster never fully contact the water. The leaves on the outside over-extract, while the leaves on the inside under-extract. You get a brew that is simultaneously bitter and weak. The kyusu filter, which lines the entire inner wall, allows the leaves to spread out in a thin, even layer across the bottom of the pot. They have room to fully expand, to unfurl from their dried, twisted state into something resembling their original living form. This maximizes surface area contact with the water, and therefore maximizes the extraction of catechins and amino acids. A tea bag stuffed into a cramped paper pouch cannot expand. A metal ball infuser traps the leaves in a tight cage, and you can see the dry leaves pressed against the holes, desperate for space. Both limit the diffusion of beneficial compounds. The kyusu solves this by giving the leaves room to dance. I bought my first kyusu from a small pottery shop in Tokoname about 5 years ago. The shop was run by an elderly potter, whose hands were stained the color of the clay he worked with. He showed me rows of kyusu, each one slightly different, the color ranging from deep red to almost black, the texture rough like unglazed stone. I chose a small one, about 300 milliliters, with a delicate mesh filter and a handle that fit perfectly in my hand. It cost me roughly $40. I brought it home, brewed the exact same sencha I had been drinking for months, and the difference was so pronounced I laughed out loud. The tea was smoother, richer, more complex. It tasted like a different beverage entirely. And because it tasted better, I drank more of it. And because I drank more of it, I consumed more of the compounds that were quietly improving my health. The tool changed the experience, and the experience changed the habit. You do not need $100 kyusu, but you do need a vessel that respects the leaves. A wide, shallow bowl. A pot with a generous filter that lets the leaves spread. Anything that gives the leaves space to open and release their full medicine. Your tea is only as good as the vessel you brew it in. Number 9. They practice an imuri with tea. An imuri is the Japanese art of napping in public, falling asleep briefly on a train, at your desk, in a waiting room, and it is not seen as laziness. It is seen as evidence of hard work and dedication. A sign that you have been pushing yourself to the point of exhaustion in service of your responsibilities. But there is a specific version of this that involves tea, and it is one of the most effective cognitive resets I have ever encountered. Here is how it works. You drink a small cup of strong green tea, about 4 ounces, not a full mug. You want enough caffeine to trigger the effect, but not so much liquid that you will wake up needing to urinate. Then you immediately lie down and close your eyes for exactly 20 minutes. Not 30, not an hour, 20. The timing is critical. The caffeine in green tea takes roughly 20 to 25 minutes to enter your bloodstream and reach your brain. So if you fall asleep quickly after drinking, you will wake up just as the caffeine is beginning to bind to your adenosine receptors. Adenosine is the neurotransmitter that builds up in your brain throughout the day, creating the sensation of fatigue. A short nap clears adenosine from your receptors, flushing it away like water washing a chalkboard. The caffeine then arrives at the perfect moment to occupy those now empty receptors, preventing new adenosine from binding. The result is a double boost. You get the cognitive clearing effect of a short nap, plus the stimulant effect of caffeine arriving at the perfect moment. You wake up feeling not groggy, but sharper than before you lay down. A 2021 study from the University of Hiroshima tested this exact protocol, a small green tea followed by a 20-minute nap, against a regular nap without tea and against coffee napping. The green tea nap outperformed both. The L-theanine in the tea smoothed out the jittery edge of the caffeine, producing a state of calm alertness rather than wired anxiety. The coffee nap made people alert but jittery, their hands trembling slightly, their minds racing. The plain nap helped but left people groggy for 10 to 15 minutes after waking, that heavy, disoriented feeling where you are not quite sure what day it is. The green tea nap produced a clean, smooth transition into a focused state, as if someone had simply turned up the brightness on the world. I have been using this on days when my afternoon energy crashes and my brain feels like static, when I am staring at my screen and the words are not making sense anymore. I brew a small, strong cup of Gyokuro, the deep green tea that is richest in L-theanine. I set a 20-minute timer on my phone and place it face down so I cannot see the screen. I lie down on my couch, close my eyes and let myself drift. I do not always fall fully asleep. Sometimes I hover in that liminal space between waking and sleeping, aware of the room but detached from it. Even that half-sleep state with closed eyes is enough to clear adenosine and reset my mental clarity. When the timer goes off, I open my eyes and I am genuinely refreshed. The fog has lifted. The words on the screen make sense again. It feels like I have stolen an extra morning, a second start to the day. Try this once. The next time you feel that 2 p.m. fog rolling in, do not reach for a second coffee. Reach for a small green tea in a quiet corner, 20 minutes. Your afternoon self will not recognize itself. Number 8. They season their tea with salt. This sounds bizarre to the Western palate. We associate salt with savory foods, with French fries and steak and the rim of a margarita glass, not with a delicate cup of green tea. The idea of adding salt to tea feels like a category error, like putting ketchup on ice cream. But in certain regions of Japan, particularly in coastal areas like Okinawa and parts of Kyushu, a tiny pinch of sea salt is added to green tea, and this practice has profound health implications that go far beyond flavor. Green tea is a mild diuretic. It increases urine output, which means it can flush electrolytes out of your system, particularly sodium and potassium. This is not a problem if you drink 1 or 2 cups a day and eat a standard diet. Your body has plenty of reserves. But for those drinking tea consistently throughout the day, especially in hot weather or after exercise when you are already losing electrolytes through sweat, the cumulative electrolyte loss can lead to fatigue, muscle cramps, and that strange lightheaded feeling some people get after their 5th cup. It is not the caffeine. It is the electrolyte imbalance. A small pinch of salt corrects this immediately. It restores the sodium the tea is pulling out. maintaining the delicate electrolyte balance your nerves and muscles depend on. Your heart beats because sodium and potassium move across cell membranes. Your muscles contract because of that same electrical gradient. When that balance tips, everything feels off, but there is more. Salt suppresses the perception of bitterness on the tongue. This is basic food science. Sodium ions interfere with the bitter taste receptors, reducing their ability to signal bitterness to the brain. When you add a tiny amount of salt to green tea, you do not taste saltiness. You taste less bitterness and more sweetness. The tea becomes smoother, rounder, more palatable. For people who struggle with the vegetal, sometimes harsh flavor of green tea, salt is the gateway drug that makes the habit stick. The Okinawans, who famously live longer than almost anyone else on Earth, have been drinking salted green tea for generations. They call it bukibuku-cha in some preparations, a frothy, salted tea served during celebrations, whisked until it develops a thick head of foam. They did not need a study to tell them it balanced electrolytes. They learned it through centuries of embodied wisdom, through bodies that felt better when they added salt and worse when they did not. I tried this reluctantly. I love salt, but the idea of putting it in tea felt wrong, like I was violating some unspoken rule of beverages. I stood in my kitchen with a small dish of sea salt and a freshly brewed cup of sencha, hesitating. I added a single pinch, barely enough to see, a few grains that dissolved instantly into the green liquid. I lifted the cup, smelled nothing different, and took a sip. The bitterness I had accepted as part of the experience simply vanished. The tea tasted fuller, more satisfying, like the volume had been turned up on everything except the harsh notes. And I noticed I did not get that slightly hollow, dehydrated feeling after my third cup. Your body needs salt. Your tea is pulling salt out. The math is simple. Add a pinch, trust the Okinawans, number 7. They drink tea at room temperature. This is perhaps the most counterintuitive habit on this list. Because we have been conditioned to believe that hot beverages are soothing and cold beverages are refreshing, and anything in between is just a forgotten cup gone stale, something you left on the counter and now regard with suspicion. But in Japan, particularly during the summer months, mujicha barley tea is served at room temperature, and many people drink their green tea lukewarm throughout the day. There is a metabolic reason for this. When you drink very hot liquids, your body must expend energy to cool them down to body temperature. This triggers a mild stress response, a slight increase in heart rate and blood pressure as your circulatory system works to dissipate the excess heat. When you drink ice-cold liquids, your body must expend energy to warm them up, which constricts blood vessels in your digestive tract and can temporarily slow digestion. Room temperature liquids, however, require no thermoregulatory effort. They are absorbed faster, hydrate more efficiently, and place zero additional stress on your system. Your body does not have to pause and adjust. It simply accepts the liquid and puts it to work. A 2023 study from the University of Tokyo compared hydration efficiency across different beverage temperatures and found that water and tea consumed at body temperature, around 98 degrees, were absorbed into the bloodstream 20% faster than ice-cold beverages and 15% faster than very hot beverages. The body did not have to divert energy to temperature regulation. It could focus entirely on absorption. Beyond hydration, room temperature tea allows you to drink larger volumes throughout the day without the palate fatigue that comes from constant hot or cold stimulation. A hot beverage demands your attention. You sip it carefully, blow on it, set it down when it is too hot. And by the time it is drinkable, you may have moved on to something else. A room temperature beverage requires no such management. You can sip continuously, maintaining a steady intake of catechins and L-theanine, rather than gulping a hot mug quickly and then waiting hours for the next one. I started keeping a glass bottle of room temperature sencha on my desk about a year ago. I brew a full pot in the morning, pour it into a clear glass bottle, and let it cool naturally on the counter while I go about my morning. By the time I sit down to work, it is at room temperature, ready to drink. I sip from it all day, refilling my small cup as needed. I drink more tea now than I ever did when I was brewing hot cups. More tea means more antioxidants. More antioxidants means less inflammation. Less inflammation means a longer, healthier life. Sometimes the simplest adjustments yield the biggest results. Let your tea cool down. Your body will absorb it like rain on soil. Number 6. They chew their tea. This is not a metaphor. In certain Japanese traditions, particularly in the tea-growing regions of Shizuoka and Kagoshima, the spent tea leaves are not discarded. They are eaten. And this practice unlocks a category of nutrition that steeping alone cannot access. When you steep tea leaves in water, you extract the water-soluble compounds, the catechins, the caffeine, the amino acids. These dissolve into the hot water and enter your body through the liquid. But the leaves themselves still contain a wealth of fat-soluble nutrients, fiber, chlorophyll, vitamin E, and carotenoids that hot water simply cannot pull out. These compounds remain trapped in the leaf structure, and when you throw the leaves away, you throw them away too. By eating the leaves, you consume the entire nutritional profile of the tea plant, not just the water-soluble fraction. You are accessing the full medicine, not just the part that dissolves easily. A 2022 analysis from the National Institute of Health and Nutrition in Tokyo compared the nutrient intake from drinking brewed green tea versus consuming the whole leaves, and found that leaf consumption provided significant amounts of dietary fiber, beta-carotene, and vitamin K that were completely absent from the brewed liquid. The fiber alone is noteworthy. Used green tea leaves contain a type of soluble fiber that feeds beneficial gut bacteria, acting as a prebiotic. Your gut microbiome converts these fibers into short-chain fatty acids, which reduce inflammation throughout the body and strengthen the intestinal barrier. You are essentially turning your tea waste into gut medicine, feeding the trillions of bacteria that regulate your immune system, your mood, and your metabolism. The most common way to eat the leaves is to drain the spent leaves after your final steep. Dress them with a little soy sauce, rice vinegar, and sesame oil, and eat them as a small side salad. The texture is tender, slightly chewy, with a mild vegetal flavor. It is not challenging. It is actually quite pleasant, like a very mild cooked spinach. I started doing this after watching my host mother in Shizuoka, the same woman who taught me about multiple steeps. The first time she placed that small bowl of dressed tea leaves in front of me, I hesitated. The leaves were dark green and glistening with oil. They looked like something you would find in a garden, not on a plate. She smiled and gestured for me to try. I lifted a small clump with my chopsticks, brought it to my mouth, and tasted it. It was delicious, savory, slightly nutty from the sesame oil with a clean vegetal finish. I finished the entire bowl. Now I eat my tea leaves several times a week. My digestion has improved noticeably. The bloating I used to experience after meals has diminished. I am getting fiber from a source I used to throw in the trash. Your tea leaves are not waste. They are the second half of the medicine. Eat them. Number 5. They pair tea with fermented foods. This is a combination so powerful and so deeply embedded in Japanese food culture that most people never notice it is happening. Miso soup and green tea, pickled vegetables and green tea, natto and green tea, fermented soybeans and a steaming cup of sencha. These pairings are not random culinary coincidences. They are a biochemical partnership that has been refined over centuries. The catechins in green tea and the probiotics in fermented foods work together in your gut, in a way that amplifies the benefits of both. Here is the mechanism. The polyphenols in green tea are not fully absorbed in the small intestine. They are large, complex molecules, and your intestinal wall does not easily let them pass. A significant portion travels to the large intestine, where your gut bacteria metabolize them into smaller, more bioavailable compounds. These metabolites are actually more potent antioxidants than the original catechins. The bacteria break down the large polyphenol molecules into phenolic acids that can cross the intestinal barrier and enter your bloodstream. But this conversion depends entirely on having the right bacteria present. If your gut microbiome lacks the specific bacterial strains that can perform this transformation, the polyphenols pass through you unabsorbed. Fermented foods, rich in lactobacillus and bifidobacterium species, provide exactly the bacteria needed to perform this transformation. A 2021 study from Kyoto Prefectural University examined the gut microbiota of individuals who regularly consumed green tea alongside fermented foods versus those who drank tea alone. The combination group showed significantly higher levels of tea-derived phenolic metabolites in their blood and urine, indicating more complete conversion and absorption of the tea's beneficial compounds. The fermented foods were essentially activating the tea, providing the biological machinery needed to unlock its full potential. I think about this every morning now. My breakfast is a bowl of miso soup with tofu and seaweed, a small side of pickled daikon, and a cup of sencha. The soup is warm and savory, the pickles are crisp and sour, and the tea is grassy and smooth. The soup and pickles are not just food. They are the key that unlocks the full potential of the tea. Without them, I am leaving a significant portion of the catechins unabsorbed. With them, I am getting the full pharmacological payload. If you are drinking green tea but not eating fermented foods, you are driving a car with the parking brake on. Add a spoonful of sauerkraut, a splash of apple cider vinegar, a small bowl of miso, something alive. Something fermented. Let the bacteria work for you. Number 4. They use tea as a skin treatment, not just a beverage. This is where the line between food and medicine completely dissolves. In Japan, green tea is not only consumed internally. It is applied externally. Used tea leaves are rubbed onto the skin. Cooled brewed tea is used as a facial toner. Tea extract is added to bath water. And this is not folk superstition. The scientific rationale is robust. EGCG, the primary catechin in green tea, is a powerful anti-inflammatory and antimicrobial agent when applied topically. It reduces redness, calms acne-causing bacteria, and protects skin cells from UV-induced damage. A 2022 study from the Department of Dermatology at Juntendo University in Tokyo found that a topical green tea extract reduced acne lesions by 40% over 8 weeks compared to a placebo, with effects comparable to standard benzoyl peroxide treatments, but without the dryness and irritation. The catechins penetrate the outer layer of the skin and reduce sebum production, while simultaneously fighting the bacteria that cause inflammation. Beyond acne, green tea applied to the skin has been shown to reduce the appearance of sun damage and slow the formation of fine lines. The antioxidants neutralize free radicals generated by UV exposure, preventing the collagen breakdown that leads to wrinkles. Japanese women have known this for centuries. They save their used tea leaves, blend them into a paste, and apply them as a face mask. They splash cooled tea on their face after cleansing. They add concentrated tea to their bath water for a full-body antioxidant soak. I started using cooled green tea as a toner about 6 months ago. I brew a strong cup in the morning, set aside a small amount in a glass jar. Let it cool on the counter, and after washing my face at night, I pat it onto my skin with a cotton pad. The liquid is cool and slightly astringent. It does not sting. It feels like water, but my skin responds differently. The chronic redness around my nose and cheeks, something I had accepted as permanent, faded within weeks. My skin looks calmer, more even healthier. I am drinking my tea and wearing my tea, and my body is benefiting from both. Your skin is your largest organ. Feed it what you feed your mouth. Number 3. They practice Hara Hachibu with tea. Hara Hachibu is the Confucian principle of eating until you are 80% full. A practice widely credited for the extraordinary longevity in Okinawa. The idea is simple. You stop eating before you feel completely full, giving your stomach time to signal your brain that it has received enough. But the Japanese apply this same principle to tea. They do not gulp, they do not chug. They do not treat tea like a hydration challenge to be completed. They sip slowly, mindfully, and they stop before they feel full. This has two profound effects. First, it prevents the stomach distension that can occur when you drink large volumes of liquid quickly. A distended stomach triggers discomfort and can actually slow gastric emptying, making you feel sluggish. Small, frequent sips hydrate without overwhelming the digestive system. Second, and more importantly, it maintains a steady, low-level concentration of tea compounds in your bloodstream over many hours, rather than a sharp spike followed by rapid clearance. The half-life of EGCG in human plasma is roughly 2 to 3 hours. If you chug a large mug of tea, you get a big spike, and then 2 hours later, your levels have dropped by half. By hour 4, they are down to quarter. You have a brief window of protection followed by a long stretch with very little. If you sip small amounts continuously, you maintain a more stable, therapeutic concentration throughout the entire day. Your cells are bathed in a constant low dose of protection, rather than a brief flood followed by drought. I noticed this shift when I switched from a large morning mug to a small cup that I refilled multiple times. The energy was different. It was not a jolt. It was a sustained, calm alertness that carried me through the afternoon, without the crash I used to feel around 3 p.m. The tea was working with my body's rhythms instead of against them. Hara Hachibu is not about deprivation. It is about optimization. Drink your tea the way you should eat your food. Slowly, mindfully, stopping before you are full. Your body will absorb more and waste less. Number 2. They select their tea based on the time of day. And the specificity of this practice will change how you think about caffeine forever. In the West, we tend to find one tea we like and drink it all day, every day, from morning until night. We buy a box of green tea bags, and that is our tea. Morning, noon, and evening, the same bag, the same brew, the same caffeine load. The Japanese approach is far more nuanced. The morning tea is typically a deep-steamed sencha, or a genmaicha green tea blended with roasted brown rice. These teas provide a moderate caffeine boost along with the comforting, toasty flavor that pairs well with breakfast. The afternoon tea is often a bancha or a hojicha, both lower in caffeine. Roasted to reduce the stimulant load, while still delivering antioxidants. The evening tea is almost always a mujicha, barley tea, which contains zero caffeine, or a sobacha, buckwheat tea, which is rich in rutin, a compound that supports blood vessel health and may improve sleep quality. This rotation is not arbitrary. It is a circadian-aligned strategy that provides stimulation when you need it, calm when you need it, and never interferes with sleep. A 2023 study from the Sleep Research Institute in Tokyo found that individuals who consumed high-caffeine green tea after 4 p.m. experienced a 25% reduction in deep sleep duration, while those who switched to barley or buckwheat tea in the evening showed no sleep disruption and actually reported improved sleep quality due to the hydrating and mild sedative effects of the grain-based teas. The tea itself was either supporting or sabotaging their sleep, depending entirely on the type and the timing. I restructured my tea day about a year ago. Sencha in the morning, the bright green brew that wakes me up gently. Hojicha after lunch, the roasted brown tea that feels warm and grounding. Mujicha after dinner, the nutty, caffeine-free barley tea that signals to my body that the day is ending. My sleep improved noticeably within the first week. I fell asleep faster. I woke up fewer times during the night. My deep sleep percentage, as measured by my wearable device, increased by an average of 15%. The same habit, tea drinking, but with a circadian rhythm applied. Your evening tea should not contain caffeine. It should contain compounds that prepare your body for rest. Switch your tea with the sun. Your sleep depends on it. And number 1. The most important Japanese tea habit, the one that underlies all the others and makes them work. They do not drink tea for health. They drink tea for connection. This is the foundation that everything else rests upon. In Japan, tea is not a supplement. It is not a pill you swallow to check a box on your wellness checklist. It is a social act. It is offered to guests the moment they enter your home, before coats are removed, before small talk begins. It is shared between colleagues during a break, a moment of mutual refreshment. It is prepared by a host with focused attention and received by a guest with genuine gratitude, 2 hands around the cup, a slight bow, a moment of eye contact that says I see you and I welcome you. The health benefits, all of them, the catechins, the L-theanine, the reduced inflammation, the lower blood sugar, the better sleep, flow from a practice that is fundamentally about relationship, not optimization. And this matters because it changes your motivation. When you drink tea to lower your cholesterol, you are operating from fear. Fear of disease, fear of decline, fear of death. Fear is a terrible long-term motivator. It exhausts you. It makes every cup a reminder of what you are trying to avoid. When you drink tea because it is a moment of stillness with your spouse in the morning, or a ritual of welcome when a friend visits, or a quiet anchor in an otherwise chaotic day, you are operating from connection. Connection is a renewable resource. It replenishes you. A 2022 epidemiological study from Tohoku University followed over 40,000 Japanese adults for 11 years and found that those who drank green tea in social contexts, with family or friends, had significantly lower all-cause mortality than those who drank the same amount of tea alone. The same tea, the same quantity, the same compounds, but the social drinkers lived longer. The researchers hypothesized that the combination of the tea's bioactive compounds and the stress-reducing effects of social connection created a synergistic effect that neither could achieve alone. The tea healed the body. The connection healed the heart. Together, they healed the whole person. I saw this firsthand in a small tea house in Kanazawa. An elderly woman, easily in her 80s, served me a bowl of matcha with hands that were steady and eyes that were bright. She did not talk about antioxidants. She talked about her grandmother, who had taught her the tea ceremony when she was a girl, standing on a stool to reach the kettle. She talked about the friends who visited her every week for tea and conversation, the same friends she had known for 60 years. She talked about tea not as a health practice but as a life practice, a thread that connected her to her past, her community, and herself. She was not drinking tea to live longer. She was living longer because tea gave her a reason to connect, and connection gave her a reason to live. So this is my invitation to you. Do not start with the temperature. Do not start with the Kyusu or the vitamin C or the salt. Start with the connection. Tomorrow morning, make 2 cups of tea instead of 1. Give the second cup to someone you love. Sit with them. Do not talk about the tea. Just drink it together. Let that be the beginning. Everything else, the health, the longevity, the calm, will follow. It is not magic, it is tea, and it is waiting for you.